Hey Cam fam, welcome back and welcome to Keeping Up with Cam. If you're new here, thank you so much for tuning into our channel, and if you're returning subby, thank you so much for coming back. So today we have our Toddler Boy hairstyle video number 74. So we're going to be doing a braided style that's a mix between cornrows and single braids. Alright, so let's go. Alright, and once all the hair is unbraided, this is what we're going to be working with. We're then going to go in with our Camille Rose Kids Brown Buttermelt. This is the Mandarin Oil Hair Balm. And then we also have the Camille Rose Honey Hydrate Leave-In. So not using too much, I work it through my hands, and I'm just going to put it through the hair, the front, the back, the inside, the outside, and the ends especially. I just want to make sure all of that gets in there. I'm not going in with the Honey Hydrate as well, not too much, but make sure you have enough on the hair. And again, just work it through the inside, outside, front, back, and the ends. Alright, getting into parting, which is actually one of the key parts of this hairstyle. We're going to start in the middle back, and I'm going to go from ear to ear. I'm going to make my part, and then I'm just going to go back in with my gel and everything, and I'm going to clean that line up. Now we're going to start at the back of the head. We're going to be making our triangle parts, so this is a triangle part style. So we're going to start on the outsides of the middle. So you're going to know where the middle is visually, but you're going to be parting or creating your section from the left and the right, but you're going to make sure the middle point of that triangle meets in the middle. And once you do that, you're just going to keep doing that throughout the hair. We're going to have upside down triangles and right side up triangles. Once you get that middle triangle, it's easier to then get the ones around it. So I always start in the middle. As you can see, once you get that middle, you know what line you're working with, and then you can make the two on the sides that are the same length. Way easier. Now take a close look. You can see here that this is actually slanted. It's higher on the left side than it is the right side. So I'm going back in, and I am starting towards the lower point, the middle point, and I'm just going to take the hair out of the higher point so that everything matches up and it actually is an even line. Make sure you're remembering to add tension when you're trying to part the hair by pulling up and down. That way, not pulling too tight though, that way you're just able to see what the line looks like with their scalp when it's moved, what it'll look like once you've braided their hair. It might feel tedious, but honestly, cleaning up your parts, cleaning up your lines will make the style look so much better. So make sure you're doing it as much as you need to get those to look super clean. Again, I'm actually doing this with no gel, so I'm trying to get it to look as straight and neat as possible as I can without the gel. This is what we used to do back in the day because there wasn't really gel like that. But yeah, do what you can, use the gel if you need to. I just kind of didn't have any, you'll see later. So I was just doing what I had to do to get through this style. As you just saw, I started again making my triangles in the middle. This is obviously a larger row, so there won't be 3 exactly, but it's still easier to start in the middle and then just make the triangles going from there on out. As you can see, I'm actually going back in and resizing this section. When I was making my braids, I realized that they were going to be too big, and I just didn't like that size that they were coming out to be. So you can go back in at any point to resize something if you do or don't like it. I mean, preferably before you start braiding, because that'll just make the style a little bit longer for you. But you can go back and make them bigger or smaller depending on what you think seems best for the style as you make your way through their hair. Okay, so we're starting over that bottom row. Like I said, they were too big before. So we're going back in. This time, I'm starting from the top point of the triangle instead of starting from like the middle. Make sure when you are doing your triangles, as you're doing your different rows or your columns, you're staggering them, you're laddering them, you're layering them. You just want to make sure that they overlap each other in different directions. You don't want all up and down triangles on top of each other, all upside down triangles on top of each other. You want them to layer, to pattern, to like fit together like Tetris kind of. You just want to keep it rotating so that the style builds and looks appealing to the eye, and it doesn't just look like you're putting one row of everything. Always make sure you're cleaning up your parts as you go. Again, you can use gel. I don't have that much to choose from, so I'm just using my eyeballs. You can see here that these triangles are smaller in size compared to the bottom row that I did. Again, it's just more comfortable for me doing that section between, you know, the ear to ear at the lower to middle half of his hair in that one block. I just prefer that size, but you are able to split that into two, and then you would get 2 levels of braids out of that instead of just one. So it all depends on the amount of hair your little ones have, how thick it is, how long you're looking to take to make this style. Different things add up, but I just prefer to have that bottom section be just one row. Okay, so if you look at the beginning of each row, you'll see that like that first triangle is not really a triangle. That's just because it's kind of hard to get everything to align in the right shape. So I kind of disregard the first one. I start with like the second one, and I go from there. Or again, you can just start in the middle, make all your triangles that fulfill the rest of the row, and then with whatever you're left over on the outsides, you just make that into their own shape. It all works once the style is done completely. It doesn't look weird, I promise. Okay, so we're now making our part down the middle of the hair. So to make sure that this lines up straight, you want to either start with your comb leading up from their nose or from the middle of their forehead, and that way you're going to make sure that it is straight completely. You're going to keep going around making rows, just making the size to the size of the triangles that you want, and then once you make that line straight through the middle, you're going to have 2 sections on each side, and I believe I put 5 triangles and like a rectangle on each side here at the top. You'll see in a second, but just section them out, whatever's even. Don't worry too much if there's a little bit left over. I mean, their head sizes are all different, so realistically they're all gonna look different. Okay, let's get to the good stuff. Parting is out the way. We are now getting into the braiding. I will say that the parting does take the longest out of this style, so be prepared for it to take a little bit of time. Now I'm going in with a concoction of gels and edge controls because I didn't have any and I already started the style and I was like, oh, can't back out now. So use what you have. This is just what I have and it's not even really a lot. So I'm going in with the red one gel. I actually got this in St. Lucia when we were on vacation. I believe you can get them in the beauty supply. I'm not 100% sure. I do like it, but I do realize that it leaves like a white residue after a day, so be mindful of that, but it does work pretty well, except for the white residue that it leaves behind. So when you decide on what gel you're using, go in and just make sure that you apply that around the perimeter of the triangle, work it through. Then you're going to just take a small piece of hair from the top of the triangle. So for the triangles that start off wide, you just take a small piece from the top, and that's what you're going to start your braid off with, and you're just going to braid it down. So we're cornrowing. These are like single braids, except it's single cornrows. So I am showing you a little bit of how to borrow hair here. This is just to help make sections the same size when you're braiding down. I will actually slow it down for you in a minute or so. You're going to see in a different part, but that's what I was doing there, and you'll see it again kind of frequently because sometimes the hair isn't leveled, isn't the same all the way throughout, and you just want to make sure that it is as you're braiding down. As you see here, I did grab some of the gel as I was braiding down just to make sure that I get all the ends done properly. Now, as you can see here, if you're looking closely to the bottom of his scalp, you can see that extra skin there. That's a part of the moving scalp that I keep talking about. You may see that on your little ones as well. It's nothing to worry about. I am a little bit overprotective, so I did take him to the doctor when he was younger, but they said that's just the way that his head is. There's no issues, there's no problems, there's nothing to worry about. So it's just more of me keeping that in mind as I braid to make sure that the styles work around that extra skin that he has at the base of his head. All right, so starting with the triangles at the top, you're going to just take a little piece of that top of the triangle and you're going to make 3 sections out of that little piece of hair. And then you're going to just braid that triangle all the way down to the bottom. So we're going to start at the smallest part and take our way to the wider part of that section, and then just braid it down as usual at the ends, again borrowing any hair that you need to along the way, just to make sure that the pieces that you're using to braid, the 3 strands that you're using to braid, are equal, which allow for the thickness and the straightness of the braid to be equal as well. If you guys know one thing from watching all of our videos, you know that I am a stickler for consistency when it comes to products. I like to use the same thing over and over. I don't like to experiment if I don't have to. But as you can see, I am scraping the bottom of the barrel of all of these random gels and stuff because I ran out. So I want to know, are you guys using any new products that you haven't been using? Have you gone back to any gels or paste that you used before? Or are you finding that ones that you've been using for a while now maybe changed their consistency and it's just a little bit different now? Because I think I'm looking to expand and add something new. I mean, the Shine and Jam is pretty safe, but I feel like if there's something else that could work for his hair, then why not? Alright, so here I want to show you guys a little slow-mo of how I borrow hair if the pieces that I'm using aren't thick enough. So I'm going under and I'm grabbing that piece from the right with my middle finger, and then I'm going to kind of loosen it a little bit so I can grab that extra hair that I need without it being messy. So I loosened a little bit from the left side, and as I bring the piece from the right side back over, I grabbed it and I just put it all in together. I know it sounds a little weird, but it is just to make sure that each strand that you're using has the same amount of thickness so that the braid that you're making comes down just as straight and as even as any other braid would. Alrighty, as you guys can see here, I'm going in with what little bits that I do have of our Shine and Jam gel, just to clean up the bigger sections of our parts. I prefer to use the Shine and Jam for these parts of the hair. Ideally, I would use Shine and Jam here, and then on each individual section, I would use a different type of gel. So the gel that I like to use for the individual pieces that I'm braiding, I like something thicker, so like a gel wax or a pomade. I just find that it helps keep the hair straight. It helps it to stop from reverting, because if you use something like an Eco Style or something water-based, the hair is just going to curl right back up, and if you're not doing like a twist style, that's not really beneficial. It's just actually more annoying and more work, especially when the hair is thick and you're trying to braid through all that thickness and now it's just curled all the way up. So like you can see here, this is very thick. It's like a block. It's not watery, it's not goopy, and it goes on really strong, and it's easy to use like a boar brush to brush it down and get the section looking like what you need it to look like. So ideally, that's what I do. I use Shine and Jam to clean up the parts, to make the parts, and then I use a gel wax or a pomade on the actual individual sections that I'm braiding. So I am using overhand braiding as I'm braiding these sections down. I just prefer it because, like I said, his hair is a lot tighter in the back and a lot looser in the front. So I don't want the back to be braided really tight like when I braid underhand. And then when I get to the front section where it's looser, 3B, 3C waves, it's really straight. And then you can see the discrepancy in the two different types of his hair and the two different sections of his hair. So I braid overhand because it allows for the braid itself to be a lot looser, a lot longer, look a lot straighter, so it can kind of blend with the hair that's in the front of his hair, and it looks cohesive all around. Brush as much as you need to, stop as much as you need to brush. You want to make sure that the hair is properly detangled, and it's just making it so much easier for you to braid as you go down, because then it's not going to be clogged and congested as you're braiding. Your hair is going to be elongated, your braid is going to come out elongated, and your style is going to look so much neater, so much nicer, and it's going to last so much longer when it's properly detangled. So I take my time, I stop a lot during each individual braid that I do. I just don't show you guys because it would be really repetitive. But I comb, I brush, I comb, I brush, I do what I have to do to make sure that the hair is detangled and easy to work with, because their hair is very thick. Some of your little ones, their hair isn't as thick, so you don't have to worry about that as much. But if your little one does have thick hair and you're braiding it down, you want to make sure that you're continually brushing and combing as you go as necessary, so that it's easier on you and the style looks good. You want to make sure you're getting your fingers as close to each other or close underneath each other as you can as you're braiding, because you want to keep these braids, especially the ones that start at the top, you want to keep them tight, and you want to make sure that they look really straight and really neat. And the way to do that is to make sure there is as little space in between where you're braiding as possible. So you don't want it to be loose, like you see how it's loose when I'm braiding down overhand. You want it to be really tight, really taut, really together as you're braiding on the root. So as you see here, I skipped that first one altogether and I started off with the second one in that section. Like I said, the first one doesn't have that definition of a triangle, so I just went to the first triangle, and now I'm going back using the Shine and Jam in the roots in the bigger section, in the bigger part of this section, to then make sure everything is tidied up and lining up, and then I'm going to go in, put my product on each individual section, and then braid them down. So this style is a little bit repetitive, a little easy to understand what you're doing, but because it is changing around, I do want to show you guys as much as I can, so that you have an idea of what you want yours to look like. It is a lot of, like I said, just triangles up and down. The braiding part is pretty quick, pretty easy, but it was that initial parting of the hair that took a long time. So just make sure that you have your parts from the beginning. You can part as you go if you prefer, if it's easier for you. I just like to know my layout. I like to know how many I have left. And I like to see that everything lines up in the way that I would like it to line up before I start braiding. But sometimes the style that I'm doing doesn't allow for that, so then I would have to just kind of part as I go. But with this one, it's super easy, and I just find it takes less time and less thought process if I just section everything out to begin with and then start braiding. All right, so we're working our way, we're getting there. We are now at the top. So being at the top now means you only have 2 rows left, essentially one big row that's split into 2, because this goes around from one side to the other. So once I've gone in and made sure that I've cleaned that up, I am now going to work on each individual one. Like I said, I believe it was 5. Correct me if I'm wrong. 5 triangles and then the little rectangle. But I'm going in, again, the hair in the front of his hair is the type 3 hair. The hair in the back of his hair is what I think is the type 4 hair. So this hair is a lot, how do I say this? It's a lot thinner, a lot more fine. So I'm a lot more careful with his hair in the front just to make sure that I'm not causing a lot of breakage. So I often say that I do like to put a little bit of oil along the perimeter before I put any gel. In this case, I wasn't really braiding the hair down on his head in like a long style, like a long braid. It's a short one here, so I didn't worry too much about putting any oil down. But if you do this technique from, you know, braid styles that I've told you before, go ahead and do that. It will not hurt, it will only help. I know it may be a little tedious, I know maybe a little bit hard, but make sure you're braiding these all the way down to the fine, thin ends. That just stops the braids from curling up, and it stops the braids from looking older quicker. As you can see, it's still curling up here, because you can tell that I didn't braid it all the way down as I could have, because I had a little bit more space. If you are like me and you get a little lazy, you can go back in with your gel, or you can go back in with like a buttercream kind of product. So I usually use the the Just For Me Curl Piece Defining Curl and Coil Cream. Long sentence to remember off my head. So I go in once I'm done with the braid and I have that little piece at the end. I'm gonna just spritz a little bit with water, as minimal as possible, even if you want to just like dip your fingers in some water and put it on the end of the hair. And then I'm gonna add that cream product that I'm gonna be using, and just use my finger to curl it, and then just make sure that the hair is not dry and it's not just being left out and looking kind of unfinished. As you can see here, the hair in the front is such a different texture, such a looser texture than the back, because without doing much you can see like the full length of the hair, but in the back you have to actually like stretch it, elongate it, because the shrinkage is just absolutely real in the back of his hair. So that's why I'm saying it's a lot easier to kind of get breakage, to get snags in their hair when it's a type 3 texture, because it's easier to just get caught up. So make sure you're paying attention, you're taking your time, you're going slowly, and you're still brushing and combing as you go. That way you're not getting any knots or tangles in the braids as you go down. Especially with me, even though this is sped up, I do braid fairly quickly, and I find that that also makes for the hair to get caught up a lot easier. So just make sure you take your time. If you're not comfortable going fast, you don't have to. Fun fact, I actually finished his hair for the day after this braid. I just couldn't go on any longer. We had started around, I think, 12:30. We finished at like 6. We just needed dinner. It was crazy. So this is the next day after sleeping on what was already there. I'm now going in after finishing up. I'm going in with our Kuza 100% Indian hemp hair and scalp treatment. I'm adding that to the scalp. This was like the smaller version. If you saw the last video, I spoke about the difference in size of the newer bottles, but I'm just adding that to the scalp, and then I'm using my fingers, the pads of my fingers, not the tips, not the fingernails, to just massage that lightly through the hair and to get it onto the ends of the hair as well. Make sure everything is just looking really nice. And here is the final product of our Toddler Boy hairstyle number 74. So this did not work up quickly, but it worked up so cute. Absolutely love this. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was 4 levels, 4 rows, and it looks great. So if you guys tried it out, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can let us know in the comment section below. You can also find us on other social media platforms. Our handle is @keepingupwithkham. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, share it with your friends and family, and make sure you come back for the next one. Bye.